One of the questions that has long puzzled me is the argument against corporal punishment. I have read many objections over the years, but I have yet to encounter one that I find entirely convincing when viewed within the broader context of modern society. To understand my perspective, the debate has to be placed alongside the reality of the world we live in. If we lived in a genuinely pacifist society, one that rejected violence in all its forms, opposed military action, abolished nuclear weapons, and sought peaceful solutions to every conflict, then I could at least understand the consistency of the argument against corporal punishment. I might still disagree with it, but I could appreciate the logic behind it. That, however, is not the society in which we live. A pupil who receives a traditional caning experiences a brief period of pain. The punishment is unpleasant, certainly, but it is temporary. It leaves no lasting physical injury when administered correctly, and is intended as a deterrent rather than an act of cruelty. Within minutes, the physical discomfort has largely passed, while the lesson it was intended to teach may remain. Contrast this with the actions that governments routinely regard as legitimate. Modern nations maintain vast armed forces equipped with tanks, warships, fighter aircraft, missiles, and nuclear weapons. These exist not merely for ceremonial purposes, but because governments accept that there may be circumstances in which they will be used. The United Kingdom possesses one of the world's most destructive nuclear arsenals in the form of the Trident missile system. Its sole purpose is to threaten devastation on an unimaginable scale should it ever be launched. The destructive power of a single Trident submarine is capable of causing casualties beyond comprehension. Beyond nuclear deterrence, Britain has repeatedly deployed its armed forces overseas. Whether those interventions have been justified or not is a matter of political debate, but the fact remains that military operations inevitably result in death, injury, and destruction. Entire communities can be devastated by modern warfare. Civilians are frequently caught in the crossfire despite every effort to minimize collateral damage. Against that backdrop, I struggle to understand why the infliction of a few moments of controlled pain upon a misbehaving child is so often described as an intolerable violation of human rights. When corporal punishment was abolished in Britain, the process began in schools and gradually spread to other institutions. Yet it seemed to stop there. Society removed one of its oldest disciplinary tools, while leaving untouched countless other forms of state-sanctioned violence. The language used to condemn corporal punishment is often striking. It is described as degrading, abusive, violent, psychologically damaging, and incompatible with modern standards of human rights. We are told that it teaches children that violence solves problems and that no civilized society should ever strike a child under any circumstances. Yet the same society accepts that violence can be justified in many other situations. Police officers may use force to restrain dangerous individuals. Soldiers are trained to kill when necessary. Governments authorize military operations that inevitably result in casualties. Nuclear weapons remain on permanent standby as the ultimate deterrent. I am not a pacifist. I have no objection to my country maintaining strong armed forces capable of defending the nation and its interests. Indeed, history teaches that weakness can invite aggression. At the same time, I find it difficult to imagine any realistic circumstances in which a British Prime Minister would actually authorize the launch of Trident missiles. Their existence is intended primarily as a deterrent, rather than as weapons likely to be used in practice. That creates what appears to be a curious contradiction. We are prepared to spend many billions of pounds maintaining a nuclear deterrent that everyone sincerely hopes will never be fired. Yet we reject the comparatively tiny cost of maintaining an effective system of corporal punishment in schools or other institutions because it is considered morally unacceptable. Meanwhile, concerns about discipline continue to dominate public discussion. Many teachers, predominantly women, alongside their male colleagues, report increasing difficulties maintaining classroom order. Incidents of disruption, defiance, aggression, and even violence against staff are now far more widely discussed than they were several decades ago. Whether corporal punishment would solve these problems is open to debate, but there is little doubt that discipline itself has become a significant concern for many schools. At the same time, many members of the public believe that educational standards have declined. Critics argue that examinations have become less demanding than in previous generations, while behavioral standards have deteriorated. Others dispute these claims, pointing to changes in teaching methods and broader social pressures. Nevertheless, the perception that discipline has weakened remains widespread. Opinion polls conducted over many years have often shown that a substantial proportion of the public would support restoring corporal punishment in some form, particularly in schools or for persistent offenders. Whether such a policy would ever return is another matter entirely, as successive governments have shown no inclination to revisit the issue. The contradiction, however, remains difficult for some people to ignore. We live in a society that accepts the legitimacy of military force, maintains nuclear weapons capable of destroying entire cities, and supports the use of armed intervention when governments believe it necessary. Yet that same society regards requiring a disruptive pupil to bend over for a few strokes of the cane as an unacceptable breach of human rights. To many, these are entirely separate moral questions. One concerns national defense and international security. The other concerns the treatment of children. To others, however, they reveal an inconsistency in society's attitudes towards violence. If controlled physical punishment is always morally wrong because it inflicts pain, how can vastly greater forms of organized violence be considered acceptable when authorized by the state? Whether one supports or opposes corporal punishment, this apparent inconsistency deserves careful consideration. A society that condemns every form of physical discipline, while simultaneously accepting the existence and potential use of weapons capable of annihilating millions, inevitably invites questions about where it draws the moral line and why.